Thanks.
The worship.
The worshiping?
Hallelujah.
They're going to worship you, Allison.
The workshop
Pick the wrong one.
topic is the 4 L's, and the first speaker is going to be Ed.
Where are you from?
Oh, from North Carolina.
Yeah, by way of Mississippi.
Know what I'm talking about, Ed?
My name's Ed. I'm an addict.
Hey, Ed.
Love you, Ed. A lot. A whole lot.
Thank you, Charles.
A whole cheerleading section, too.
Let's see. So sometimes I feel like I have a lot to say until I'm asked to say it, and so it's like I know I can talk, I can fill the room with words, but I don't want it to just be words. I want it to be I don't know, meaningful, purposeful. So part of that is ignoring the negative language, the disease that tells me that I'm not worthy of carrying a message. But part of that is not just like an obligation, but like a desire to honor what I've been given, and so like I have this pressure. It's my own pressure to do well, to not just talk about whatever these 4 L's are, but to do so with grace and kindness and love and all those. Well, love is one of the 4 words, so I guess I'm on the right track, right? So, like I think 99% of the bathrooms in America have this live, love, laugh thing on their wall somewhere, and so that's what I think of when I think of this. And the last workshop I did was on the triangle of self-obsession, and that was, I think I was more comfortable. I had more confidence with that because I could read some literature and like, okay, I could just kind of repeat this and incorporate some other stuff and get out of there. But with this, like, I've never even heard of the 4 L's, and it's like, is this some kind of made-up workshop, And I'm not trying to like speak badly about it, but I mean that's part of my maybe cynical behavior with things. But so anyway, I'm going to do my best, and I know. But I want to say too before I get started on that. So I think it's really cool to do this workshop with Allison. We moved away from Mississippi 4.5 years ago to North Carolina. Obviously, when you move away, I mean, relationships change. You don't have the connections aren't the same. There's not just about rebuilding. It's not just about building new connections. It's how do you maintain some of these connections that you've had for years and years and years. And so like that's been it's had its challenges and difficulties too. And so to come back to this convention, it's been really cool for me, and we've all had this experience, I'm sure. If we haven't, I'm sure we will. Just seeing people that you haven't seen for years, all kinds of people you just had some kind of random connection with at some other convention or some other meeting somewhere. And, when I got clean, Bob and Pixie were at meetings, and back in Jackson, Mississippi. And so they were definitely a part of that core group that was there when I got there that are still here, That's definitely not the case 14 years later. That not the whole group of people that was there when I got clean are here anymore, But there still are some, and I'm grateful for that. But eventually I met Allison too, and eventually she got clean at some point. I don't know the timeline with all that, but just to kind of see things come full circle, it's just cool. So I want to say beautiful, but I don't want to sound cheesy. So there's that. So anyway, I'm glad to be here with you, Allison.
Thank you.
So the 4 L's: live, learn, love, and let go. I try to get Allison to do love and let go because I feel like those are the 2 hardest for me. So let's see. I thought about Bob earlier. I don't know if he's in here, but when I first got clean, I asked him, like, what is this first year like? And he just said, it's really just about learning how to live clean. And my experience of that was that he's right. It was simply just about learning how to live clean. I really couldn't learn about doing too much more than that. Just whatever I do, don't use, you know. And so just spending a good year doing that was obviously very beneficial and very good thing. But I think to kind of carry that, to go through that process of that first year clean with that in mind of just learning how to live clean, I think what that did was take a lot of pressure off of me to learn how to do everything else I would eventually have to learn, you know. So the second year, or once I got a year clean, I asked him, I said, so what's the second year? And he's like, it's about learning how to do things differently. And so that was definitely a year about learning how to do things differently. So I got 2 years clean, and I asked him what the third year was for. And he said, it's about learning how to do the right thing even when you don't want to. I didn't ask him anymore because it was just getting harder and harder. Yeah. So there's definitely been a great deal of learning. You know, so I've been clean over 14 years, and I don't know how long I was clean, but I think about 2 years clean, and maybe 3 years, I don't know, it was somewhere around that time. And I picked up a medallion, and I remember being like so on fire for recovery because I feel like at that point, like I feel like the effects that the actual drug use had on me were gone, you know. It's like one day I just woke up and the fog was gone. Like all the drugs were finally out of my system. Like it took 2 freaking years to get out or something. And so there's this, things just got really beautiful. And I remember even sharing in a meeting one time that I felt so good that I felt like if you touched me that you could feel good too, you know. And I knew it was like a bit grandiose, but like that's just how good I felt, you know. And but I quickly experienced more difficulties and more challenges and more hardships too. And so I'm fortunate to have had this lesson of learning the value to remain teachable, you know. And I remember sharing, picking up that key tag, whatever year that was, that, you know, I hope I always remain teachable. Because I was able to kind of have some foresight into, you know, if I'm not careful with this, if I'm not aware of just all the pitfalls that I don't know are there, I still don't know what all the pitfalls are there for me. But if I'm not, to some degree, diligent with trying to learn what those pitfalls are, and a big part of that is listening to the people who came before me, you know. Sometimes listening or watching the people who come before me isn't always a good story too. In the past, I don't know, a few years, I've seen some people with a lot of clean time either die or just relapse and just suffer and be miserable. And it sucks when that happens to anybody we know, but there's something scary to me when that happens to people who are truly considered my predecessor, who really just admired their recovery and wanted a big part of that. And so and I've had that experience since I've really been here, but I think the longer I stay clean, the different kind of impact that has on me. You know, it's always profound, but there's good stories of that too. I mean, when I first got clean, there was a woman who relapsed, and she came right back, and she's been here ever since. You know, so every time I see her, I'm just like, this is so cool to me. You know, because I think it's easy, and maybe it's easy, especially as an addict, to see just all the bad stories and the negativity and how things might not work, you know. I don't know why I'm doing this with my arm a whole lot right now, but I think that drive, that desire to remain teachable has always been there, and I think that it's always been a vital part in my recovery, my growth, just any success that I've had, just as with anything I've done, with just the man that I am, you know. And so just so I think just learning, I think I can probably cover a lot of different areas with learning and what all that does. But I think the bottom line is, no matter what, is, you know, if I ask myself, am I teachable, I need to be able to answer that question. And if it's not yes, then I need to like stop and do what it takes. And I think that comes down to just really some of the basic suggestions that we have in Narcotics Anonymous, and it's usually just talk to my sponsor, work steps on it, talk to other recovering addicts who who seem to be teachable too, you know. And so I've been fortunate to have experienced a lot of grace in my recovery too. And the way that I look at grace is like when someone spends time with me, when they invest time and energy with me, and they know that there's little to no return of investment. Like they have no idea like what if their time spending with me is going to pay off for me or not, you know. And it's almost as if on their end it's a gamble. You know, am I going to waste this time with this guy? Is it really going to go anywhere with him? And they're just giving me whatever their gift is, and they didn't have to, and they got really nothing out of it. Yeah, maybe they can see how far the ripples go sometimes, and they get, you know, a sense of joy seeing that. But really, in the moment, like that person doesn't know. And I've had so much of that, and I think that that's love too, you know. And so I'm helping you out, Allison, with the love part. But I've really just been thinking about grace and love in that way lately. It's just a time that people spend with me and that are willing to just to do that, just to be with me, just to be present. And it's deeper than just the things we talk about sometimes. I think it's just being there, and you can just you know when it's just someone that's just giving them selflessly. And it's not even about, you know, the other person receiving that gift. It's not even about them. It's just they're doing what they know they have to do. And I'm really glad that I'm able to see that. I've also been able to do that. And I probably don't see myself in the same, you know, light of grace, if you will, as I see other people. But so I think that there comes this idea of self-love, you know, where maybe I need to learn to appreciate the gift that I have, the message that I carry, the way that I carry it, and that people do appreciate that, you know. And I need to accept that, you know. I need to, when people say, hey, I think you did a good job doing a workshop, you know, I need to just accept that and not say, oh, well, you know, I was nervous, or I just did my best, you know, like, because at that point I'm like dismissing their gratitude, I'm dismissing their praise, I'm dismissing the gift that they're trying to give to. And so I really need to completely and wholly accept that. And what that does to me, that really enriches that interaction. It really it brings more meaning to that interaction. It makes that relationship better. And I believe that most, if not all of us, would agree that the greatest relationships we get in recovery, or the greatest gift we get in recovery, are relationships. And I can't take credit for that either. Jerry S. told me that a long time ago. So anyway, where are we at? I still have way too much time left. All right, so it's hard doing these 4 L's. Learn. I covered love a little bit. I'll save the worst for last. So listen. Okay, so it's not live. I said live earlier. Apparently I need to listen. Yeah. So I guess anything that I say about listen from now on, you can just take it with a grain of salt. So listen, that's a good one too. That's funny because I've been thinking about live this whole I've tried not to think too much about it because it just makes me anxious and nervous. I'm like, what good is it going to do to me to think about all this stuff, and then I'm not going to say what I planned on saying anyway. But I still kind of have it in my mind about these 4 words, like live, learn, love, and let go, and it's not even live, it's listen. So that's pretty funny. Yeah, I might need to come back to that one then. Listen. That's a good one. Letting go is hard. Yeah. Alice and I were talking about that earlier, and I'm not going to try to steal some of her thunder because I think she was saying some good stuff about it, and I don't know that she realized that she was saying some good stuff, but it stuck out to me, and it felt meaningful to me. So I'll try not to steal what you said earlier. But I'm terrible. I'm terrible at conversation memory recall, so if I do say something that she said earlier, it was not on purpose, so it's because I just don't remember who said what at this point. So so I do think that, so I've been thinking about process lately, and I know I said this, Allison, so
You did.
this ain't me stealing it, is that, you know how, like, we might go through some hard time, some challenge to arrive to some insight, to something we need to know, or some place we need to be, some awakening, and there seems to be somebody who's like in our life somehow, and they're like, well, I knew that the whole time. If you would have just listened to me, you would have saved yourself from all that pain, you know. And they think you're hard-headed, and I may have been guilty of that too. I may have been that person saying, hey, if you just listen to me, you wouldn't have to go through all that misery. But I think it's important that we still have to go through our own process to arrive to whatever awakening we need to come to, you know. And so sometimes it's hard, especially when the process is dark and difficult and sticky and just like, I wish I just knew, you know. There have been so many times where I'm like, I wish I was just much more intelligent than what I am so I could just figure out the damn answer and not go through this shit, you know. But that has never gotten me any amount of success. It's never brought any meaning to any relationships, just like automatically have it. There's always been some sort of a process that I have to go through, and I think two things here. Part of that process requires some letting go of some things, but I think letting go in itself is a process of its own. I think it would be nice just to have, you know, the simple awareness that I need to let go of some whatever it is in my life, and then boom, I can let it go, and I'm done. And if that's the case, I'll just have the next thing on the list to let go, and then the next thing, and all I'm doing is just marking things off that list. But I think that it's important that I do go through whatever that process requires of me to learn how to let go. You know, the skills that come with that process of letting go, the enrichment of the spiritual principles in my life that happens as a result of going through the process of learning how to let go. That sounded profound. I'm going to need to write that down.
They're recording it.
Yeah, all right, good. So, like, sometimes I say stuff and I need to remember it because it's pretty cool. Like, it's helpful for me. It may not mean shit to y'all, but that's me trying to have my ego right there, by the way. But I do think that's always important. I think sometimes I try to skip parts of that process just to hurry up and make things happen. And ultimately, I think that just delays, it just prolongs the process too, you know. And so usually what that is the opposite of letting go. It's just holding on to things, and that sounds cliche, doesn't it? But literally, I think it's what it is. It's just refusing to let go, controlling things. I have this thing too where I keep saying like my process. You know, I think that there's recovery process. There's just recovery in general. There's spiritual principles in general, but I don't live your life. You know, I don't live anybody's life in here except for my own. Everybody lives their own life, and so I kind of say my process because these are the things that I have to go through. Whatever particular experiences that are unique to me, I need to be intentional with that. I need to honor that too, and so I think the other thing that says is like my work here has not been fruitless. You know, the steps that I've worked, the principles that I've practiced, that I continue to try to practice and improve on, all that is things that I've learned how to do. It's what's made me. It's what's built my character. It's what made me who I am. And I think that is ultimately, and the further I go into this journey, I think it's what continues to bring meaningful relationships into my life. And I still think that only really ever happens when I let go of all of those other things that try to get in the way of me just being genuine and authentic and just trying to live as a principled man, just being genuine and authentic. And, you know, because all that, my ego, this disease, it wants to tell me that you know, what I have, no one wants, and if someone wants it, it's not yours anyway, you know. And again, I think that dismisses the gifts that I've been given. I think it dismisses the work that I do. I think it certainly dismisses the work that you do in our relationships, you know, in the relationship that you guys have with me. And so, again, I think it would just be irresponsible of me to dismiss the idea that this isn't my process, you know, because I think if I realize, you know, this is my process and that yeah, they may be, you know, like I said, it's just general recovery, you know, spiritual principles across the board, but my experience with those is unique, and it is what makes me who I am. And so I need to honor that because there have been, of course not every one of you, but there have been so many people in recovery who have definitely influenced much of who I am, you know. I don't think that I came to recovery empty-handed, but I know I didn't have much, and so I feel like everything that I've learned in here really just somehow always comes back to the idea of relationships, you know. I still don't know what I'm going to say about listen, and I may not need to say anything about it at this point. Maybe next time I do a workshop on the 4 L's, I'll listen to what the words of the 4 L's actually are. I'll tell you what, maybe I can speak to that some, is that, you know, I think, again, and maybe this kind of goes back to some of those challenges and hardships and just, you know, adversities that we have in life, and especially when we're going through some sort of process to arrive to some spiritual awakening, is that I think it has a lot to do with fear, but is that I kind of, with fear, it just brings these messages a lot of times, you know. But I think that if I just listen to what's going on in my mind, if I listen to what's going on with me spiritually and emotionally, I think oftentimes it's really just this message of something I need to do in my life in which I lack something, you know, whether I might lack, you know, an application of spiritual principles, where I might lack some self-worth in some area, and it only is, I don't ever get to truly identify those things until I slow down and I just listen. It's not even just like writing out step work, you know. In fact, a lot of my step work, now that I'm talking about listening, is just that. It's about listening, you know. How is this your first step? And just kind of watching and listening for how is this my first step? How is this my 12th step? How is this me having had a spiritual awakening, you know? Just to listen to the messages that life has to bring. And so I think sometimes if I'm in a hurry, if I'm trying to skip parts of that process, those messages, those things that I need to listen to come across as fear, because I don't understand it. I'm not seeing it for what it is. There's just this sense of you know, failure. There's this sense of you know, low self-esteem, insecurities, whatever it is. And so if I'm in a hurry, or if I'm not remotely spiritually centered, those messages that say my higher power is trying to send me, I'm only going to see as something negative and something horrible from somewhere dark, you know. And so I think it really just says a lot about where I need to be in the process, and just stop and slow down, let go of the idea of controlling and trying to speed up a process that can't be sped up, and just listen. And only when I do that can I really hear what I need to hear. And no matter how much, you know, I do like a lot of personal growth stuff, but I can get so buried in books that I'm just like learning, like reading, just doing all these things to promote, you know, self, you know, growth, personal growth, but none of that really matters. I can do all the, I can write all the steps I want, but if I never slow down and just listen to what I need to hear, I'm just making it harder on myself, you know. So I don't know if that part makes a whole lot of sense. I'm kind of just winging it at this point on the listing stuff. But that's what comes to my mind when I say that. So maybe there's something there, you know. So I hope that that was somewhat coherent. So I really don't know what else to say. I think I might not have anything else to say. I'm grateful. I don't know if I'm honored because I still don't feel like I was able to do a whole lot with that. But I'm glad that I get to participate in recovery. I'm glad I get to participate in this workshop. I'm really grateful that I get to participate in this with Allison. I just think it's really cool. I think just Melissa, the programming chair, just you know, all the Oscar speech stuff here, but I'm really cool that I really think it's cool that I got to do this, and I think that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you very much. Okay, so our second speaker is Allison from Baton Rouge area.
Hey y'all, I'm Allison. I'm an addict.
Hey, Allison.
I'm certainly nervous. This is my first workshop. Melissa asked me to speak, and I totally tried to dope fiend her and be like, oh, let me talk to my sponsor, knowing full well what my sponsor would say, thinking maybe she'd forget it. And a couple days later, she texted me, and she was like, so, about that workshop. So here I am because, you know, I've tried to make it a point to say yes more because, you know, somebody's carried the message for me. I'm definitely going to cry. And I think it's important because in my mind, like, my disease tells me I don't have shit to give to y'all and I don't have shit to say. But I know that's not reality. Obviously, I haven't used in some time, so I'm doing something right. And it's super cool as I sit in this room, like I have my little cheerleaders. Like I've got awesome relationships with people in these rooms that show up and support me. And I try my best to avoid thinking about this altogether. So this may end up sounding like a complete shit show. I apologize in advance if it does. But you know, I don't know, the 4 L's. Well, I was like, I'm gonna talk about letting go last because that's like the one I struggle with the most, I think, in my mind. But I think I'm gonna switch it up. So I've done a lot of work in the past couple months. Like so recently, I was going over my 7th step. I had moved to Oregon. I was ending a relationship with somebody I'd been in with for a year and a half that I had moved to Oregon to be with. And through doing this step work, like, there became a need for me to do some step work on codependency. And highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't done that. It has helped me a lot. And through that step work, I was doing the 3rd step, and I've really been struggling with some things. And the 3rd step came along, and I'm writing on it, and I'm struggling and beating myself up against the wall because, like, you know, I'm not doing it right. I should be here. And I realized that, like, I have this image in my head of letting go and turning it over to my higher power is like taking this basket full of shit that I no longer want anymore because, like, I've tried to control it and caused myself enough pain that, like, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Like, here's my basket of shit. Take it, and it should all be gone. Like, it's not in my hands anymore. I'm done. I shouldn't have to worry about it. I shouldn't have to think about it. And, like, I was beating myself up over it because, like, I wouldn't say at that point I was taking my will back because I had turned it over, but it was still in my mind. Like, I still had feelings about it. I was still struggling. I was still in pain, and I expected all of that to just go away because I turned it over. And it doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, I wish it was that easy. You know, like as Ed said, and as we were talking before this, it is a process. It's an ongoing process, letting go. You know, because I like to take my will back constantly. And the more I practice it, the better I get at it. But I still, especially in situations where I don't have the answers, I don't know what's coming down the pipe, like there are times when I would much rather stick my hand in shit and make things happen, self-sabotage, whatever, just to know what the answer is and what the outcome's going to be. And that's some sick shit. And I'm not a fan of creating more shit and chaos in my life. Like, life on life's terms is a bitch as it is. So I realized through all of this and letting go and my need to take action, because like I always feel like if I'm taking action, I'm moving forward, I'm making something happen, like I'm doing something. It's another distraction for me. That for me, part of letting go is the ability to sit still. And that's hard for me because I want to make shit happen and I want things to happen the way I want. I want you to do what I want. Lord knows. And that doesn't work. And part of sitting still is like dealing with feelings. And you know, like that's a blessing and a curse for me because like, you know, it's great when like you're laughing and having fun with your friends, but it sucks when fucking pain comes knocking on your door and you want to do something to change it. And for me, like I've had to sit with that, you know, and so for part of letting go and part of sitting still, the beauty of this program is I don't have to do it alone. I've never had to do it alone in this program. And I'd say that's where some of that love comes in. The love in these programs, the relationships I've built in this program are amazing. Like when I'm going through shit, I can pick up the phone and call people who genuinely care about me, who want to see me be the best person I can be, and give me the ability to see myself, like outside of myself, like not my work view. And like that's awesome for me. Like I don't know what else there is to say about that. I mean, the love in this program is definitely something that keeps me coming back because I don't feel alone. And part of those relationships is the ability to listen. So for me, I'd love to say I'm a fucking great listener. I'm not. I'm not the best listener. I have gotten better, and I've learned the value of listening. When I got the title of the workshop and I saw listen, one of the first things that came into my mind was, so when I moved to Oregon, I grew up in these rooms, and I knew people like Ed and Nikki before I even got clean. Like I would go to meetings with my parents and stuff. I was still using, but I would go to NA. Like I knew what this fellowship was about before I got clean. I knew where to go when I was ready. But I'd never gotten that experience of being a newcomer and walking in the rooms, and I'm not Bob and Pixie's daughter, which is a blessing and a curse because it's cool because like I had these relationships before I came in the rooms, but now I'm in a completely different area on the other side of the fucking country, and I've got to show up to meetings, I've got to get numbers, I've got to reach out, I've got to do the footwork for my own recovery and find my place, you know, like find my home group or whatever. And I remember going to this one meeting, my home group in Oregon, Wednesday nights, and there was this lady, Marcia, there. She looked just like my middle school band teacher, so immediately I was like, all right, she's cool. But like we would talk after the meetings, and like she had missed a meeting like 1 week, so like 2 weeks later I come back to the meeting after the meeting, and she's like, so how's, you know, such and such going? And I had shared about it 2 weeks before, and I was like, wow, this lady like legitimately listened to me, like she cares about me. It wasn't like this, I saw fucking rainbows driving down the highway today. Like, she paid attention. It wasn't like she just heard and it was noise. And for me, that's what I try to do. Like, I'll stop and ask people, how they're doing. Like, what's going on in your life? Because I do care. And I want to know what's going on with you. I used to do great at superficial relationships before I got clean, and I can't do that shit anymore. I can't do that fucking shallow shit anymore. Like, tell me what's going on with you. Let me know. Like, if I can help, please. But like, I don't grow from that shit. I don't learn from things like that. And so like the ability to listen to people and hear what they're having to say is really valuable to me. I think that kind of ties into that authenticity that Ed was talking about. Authenticity is really valuable to me. I really can't stand fake people. I can't. I'll be nice to you, but I really am not going to put a whole lot of effort into a fucking fake relationship. That's all there is to it. Sorry. Keep coming back. But that was one of the things that stood out to me when I heard about listening was, how much that just one small act that Marsha did just meant so much, because I was away from home and like that just made me feel like I had come home, like I had found my people. And shortly thereafter, that became my home group. And, I met other women in that program through service work, or in that area, through service work, who also listened and were there for me and heard that I was homesick and took me under their wing and, asked me to go to functions, forced me into service work. And it was awesome, that was a fucking awesome experience. And so, I guess on the same vein as listening, for me it was it's like threefold. So listening to others, listening to my higher power, and listening to myself. When it comes to listening to my higher power, when I was moving across country, I had to bring my 2 cats with me. So I'm in a moving van, and I have this cat who's the cat version of me. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I identify with her in so many ways. And she was over it. Like, we're like, I think we just left California. She was over it. She was ready to get out of the truck. I'm trying to hold her. She's trying to crawl in the windshield. And like my sponsor, she's driving down with me my sponsor's in Oregon. She's driving down with me, and she's driving the big old truck, and she's trying to get my sponsor's lap, and I'm holding her, and she's fighting. She's trying to duck under my arm. And I laughed, and I looked at my sponsor, and I was like, I bet you this is how my higher power feels about me. When they're trying to talk to me, like, I'm like, no, you don't want me to go this way, but, like, let me find the loophole here. She's trying to scratch me and get out, and I laughed, and it's so funny because it's true, because like I can get so focused. I'm an addict. Like I'm a prize, and that served me well in certain areas of my life, like my education. That's been great, but when it comes to like my recovery, I suck sometimes at listening to my higher power. You literally have to beat me over the head sometimes. And a lot of that is just due to losing conscious contact with my higher power. Stopping my like morning routine of waking up and having coffee and going outside and looking at my collection of plants that I obsess over. And just, kind of starting my day off like that. Because my higher power, if I pay attention and have conscious contact, will put people or things in my life to guide me. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's simple shit just to remind me that I'm exactly where I need to be. And I need that shit, but I realize that I lose that when I lose my conscious contact with my higher power, and I get in self-will, and I'm not letting go of shit. And then as far as listening to myself, oh good, I'm almost out of time, y'all. As far as listening to myself, you know, I've struggled with this a lot since I've gotten clean, because like I've got the disease of addiction who tells me that I'm no good, you know, I don't have anything to offer anybody, you're stupid, you're not enough, you shouldn't listen to yourself, like look at all the fucking mistakes you've made along the way. And of course if I listen to that shit, like I'll act out and, you know, end up with a pint of ice cream, binge watching Netflix or something. But like I do have some knowledge and experience and people in my life that I can trust and go to. And when I listen to myself and my instincts, that's really what it is, like my intuition about certain things and not my disease, I tend to make better decisions. But I fucking second guess myself all the fucking time. And I don't trust myself. And that's been a struggle for me, is the ability to learn how to trust myself.
You're good. You got plenty of time.
No, girl. I'll wrap it up.
You have like 15 minutes.
Right.
And like, I mean, my life isn't shit today. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why I struggle with trusting myself in my decisions sometimes, because I'm afraid of pain. I'm afraid of causing myself pain. And that's certainly driven me in my life a lot, like the fear of causing myself pain. And so I'll listen to the fucking disease and not trust myself when it comes to things. And I miss out on a lot of fucking opportunities for that sometimes. Listen, learn, love. Did I do them all?
Like, oh, we got that one.
I think I did.
I think you should run through them again.
No. I don't know. Like, I just, thinking about all this, learning. I was like, I knew I forgot one. I guess, so learning for me, I was like, I could pull out a dictionary, read the definition. For me, is changed behavior. And part of that is also a process. I mean, all of it's a process. But it's also the ability to recognize areas of my life where I need to change my behavior. Because, like, I can't change shit that I'm not aware of, that I don't know. And that ties into fucking listening. Because sometimes people are going to tell you shit you don't want to hear, but you may want to listen to it. So for me, like, the very definition of learning is changed behavior. And I don't do that shit perfectly by any means. But when I spot it and I try to do something different, I have the opportunity to have a different result, which is important for me, because I don't want to be that fucking hamster in a wheel doing the same shit over and over and over again. So I don't know. I think that I don't have anything else to say. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Good job. Really good.
Was it? Are you just saying that?
No, I'm not.
All right, we are out of time for this workshop, and we'd like to thank each of our speakers for sharing with us today.
Gotta go, Ned.
Please take what you need for your personal recovery and respect the anonymity of each member in attendance. We will circle up and have someone read the Just for Today meditation. I was worshiping.